So quickly moving on to the scripting part. Uh, so for this example, we'll directly dive into an integration which will help you understand all these concepts. So what are we going to do? Again, on a high level, whenever you're working with scripts, this is the execution that ideally happens. So this is the flow of scripts. As and when you load a form, server-side operation happens, it queries the DB, and then the business rules run parallelly with client scripts. So here we are seeing the form request, server-side and client-side operation. So we need to understand this difference first. So here are two different types of scripts, server-side and client-side. So server-side scripting ideally means all these operations are happening on the database on the instance, which means either create or query. The query is nothing but reading the data, creating and inserting your record in the DB, updating or deleting. All these are considered server-side operations. And client side is nothing but the browser side. So on the browser side, as and when, let's say, if I want to show a pop-up, if I want to validate the data, if I want to, auto-populate some information, I can do all those in the form that is on the browser with the help of client scripts. And the execution goes this way. As when you request something, the database is queried and it checks for any server-side rules. And in most cases, ACLs will come into picture. We saw ACL earlier. So it will check if the user has sufficient roles. If the user has roles, first the client-side operations are processed, and then all the transaction is returned to the user interactions. Once everything is done and the form is loaded, it runs the next set of server-side operation. If it checks for any query business rules, any workflows that it need to trigger, and once all this is done, it again makes a database query. So when it makes a database query, again the database query ideally reloads the table, reloads the tab on the browser tab. As and when the tab is reloaded, the same process goes again. It makes a DB query, checks for any display BRs, checks the ACL rules, and if all the rules are validated, fine, it runs the sequence of operations again. Checks for any any client-side rules, and all those client-side scripts are going to get reflected in the user interface, and then it goes this way. So the sequence repeats every time the flow happens this way. So first thing is a server-side rule, which is nothing but a query business rule works as and when the form is loaded. After that, a display BR happens. Then ACLs are evaluated. Then client scripts are evaluated. The user is updated about the client-side operations, whatever is done. And then if the user makes any changes, similarly, database operation repeats. It evaluates, if there is a workflow that needs to trigger or if there is a UI action operation that is happening. All those works, and then the operation repeats. It queries the DB, it checks for ACL, client scripts are evaluated, and this is the high-level flow of how the scripts are working. So let's quickly jump on into an integration concept using which, whatever that we have discussed, we'll try to utilize all the scripts and then we'll come up with the integration. So I'll quickly show how this works and then we'll see how we can configure them on our instance. So in most cases, whenever there's an integration in place, it actually happens. And in this case, we're actually using ChatGPT in our scenario. I have already created some account. I've made this integration work. And we are going to see how we can replicate this. At this point in time, we are using virtual agent. So click on this virtual agent. Again, this works only on portal because virtual agents are available here. It pops up a window and it asks us, I'm your virtual agent. What can I do for you? First things first, we have show me everything and I have two operations. I can ask the ChatGPT something. And from Servicenow side, we can actually talk to ChatGPT and ask it certain questions. So let's ask top 10 news in the world. So Servicenow is actually communicating with ChatGPT right now. ChatGPT is going to give us a response. This information is not coming from Servicenow. It's an integration in place, and ChatGPT is giving all this data to us. So how are we going to replicate this? So in this scenario, we will be using some flow designer actions. We'll be using some REST API calls. We'll be using some business rules and scripting rules. So this is where we understand all the scripts, and we'll be able to get this end solution once we configure everything. So the expectation is this: you can go ahead and create something that will help us to see how we are able to give this as an end solution. So let's go ahead and say goodbye to our ChatGPT and get started with our integration. Quickly looking into this, the first thing we need to do is create some account in the OpenAI systems. So all those needs to happen because we need certain keys. Without that key, it would be difficult for us to go ahead and create all these activities. So first, you need to have a key. This key is going to, you need to create this from your uh, platform.openai API keys. So I'm going to quickly pass my window while I log in. Yeah, now I have this. So you need to navigate to this platform openai.com and create your own key. So I need this key first because this is how I authenticate from Servicenow to the platform AI to allow me all these things to get it working. So when I have this, I can navigate back to Servicenow and create a REST message. So understand that REST is a protocol. You can call this as a protocol using which different systems interact with each other. So REST APIs are application packaging interface. So if you want to talk to a different application, the interface should be available, and that's how you interface, talk between two different machines. So once you have this, understanding about how REST APIs work, you can go ahead and create a REST message. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and create new. This example is mostly going to be OpenAI, and the endpoint, I already have this. So the endpoint is mostly going to be constant in most of the scenarios. So to be HTTPS API dot openai.com /v1 completions. So I can find all these AI related information in the references, API references and documentations here. I can play around that, give the endpoint, which is API openai.com v1 completions. The next thing that we need to do is go ahead and make some changes on the HTTP request for this method. But let's not do this. We have methods wherein we need to go ahead and configure them. So the method by default, it creates a default get. So we can directly go ahead, click on new and create a post method, because post method is where it actually goes and post whatever we are giving the information during our chat. Let's say ask open AI something, and the endpoint is going to be the same. You can actually copy it from the previous ones. HTTP API dot open AI dot com /v1 completions. So we have this. Next thing is the HTTP request. We need to add the headers in our example here. So the first one is authorization. So this is where we'll be giving our key. So the key, whichever that got created in our OpenAI systems, you can go ahead and give that here. So we'll see bearer. Let me go ahead and create a new key. Test key. Create this, copy this, and done. So I'm going to set this to this. That is bearer. Space this and save it. This is very sensitive, so I'm going to delete it as soon as the session is done. So let's go ahead and go for the content type. In this case, this is going to be application JSON. So the next thing that we need to add is the content. So for content, we are going to follow the JSON format again. So we need to define what model of ChatGPT we are going to communicate with. So we need to add all those parameters. So the first one is model. The same format, we need to add 4 more parameters that the OpenAI system that is requesting for. So the next one is prompt. So prompt is the one where we are going to give our data. Any inputs is going to go in the prompt. Next one is temperature. So temperature is the one that talks about how intelligent this particular ChatGPT system is. And then finally, we have max tokens. Paste this. Then we have our max tokens here. So temperature and model are fine. We don't need to give them in quotes. Can remove this. So temperature and max tokens. So go ahead and define tokens. So all these are given now. We have the basic set of information. Let us go ahead and save this. So here the prompt, everything available. We have an option to auto generate variables. So click on this to generate your variables. And as and when the variable is available, we can actually go ahead and test them. So let's give the test value as 1024 for tokens. And the model is text C 003. This is the model that we are going to talk with. And question, what can we ask now? So top news in India. The temperature, let's keep the intelligence anywhere between 0 to 1. So we have the test value. So if I click on test, here on my method, this will initiate the integration of Servicenow to ChatGPT, and right now we are testing out. So I can see the status is 200, which means this worked fine without any issues. And it talks about, we has top 3 news. So the first one we are seeing here, Corona in India, and India launches contact tracing app. And then the final one is India China, some information, but yeah, we'll keep all these just for testing purpose. So we're able to test, everything is working fine. Integration is okay. The BRR tokens and authorization tokens, whatever we have given is completely fine. And it's able to ask the OpenAI system anything based on whatever method that we have given. So go ahead and preview the script usage, copy the snippet once the script comes up. So we need this again, copy this. We are going to create a server-side script right now. So let us go ahead and create a business rule, or yeah, let's do script includes. So navigate to system definitions, script includes, and let's create one. You can say OpenAI utils. So the API name comes up and we have this here. All we need to do is now go ahead and define a function here. So we need our code to be available inside a function. So how do we define that? Right. Ask OpenAI function. And this opens up a function for us here. Yeah, we are missing a colon. And we have already copied a code. We can paste all of them right here. Let's format this, select all, format code. And if needed, we can actually do a try catch, but let's keep the code simple. We'll only do the try part of this. So now that we have, there is no need for all these comments, we can remove them. We have a basic code that we can actually trigger or use this. So let's go ahead and define some variables. We need variable model. We need variable empty, very sure. Define it empty. We need variable for max tokens and set all these values here. So the prompt, again, we need prompt also. So how do we get that prompt? So I can add that as a parameter here, prompt message. So I'm going to take the model value from here instead of hard coding it. So that, as and when there's a need to change, I can change it over here. And I'll change this to model. Temperature goes the same. So I'll change this to 0.5. Copy this value from here and paste it over here. So this is a number value, numeric value. Does it need to be a string? So I'll change this and I'll keep the temperature here. Same goes for tokens. So this is a numeric one. You can say it like this and get this value. Okay, and now the prompt is going to be a function parameter that we are passing here. So this is pretty much sufficient for us. So the next thing that we need to do is right now we need to process the response that the OpenAI system is going to give us. So in our example, we saw how we can process using our test systems that is provided as part of the REST message. So as this quick example, we need to get the response and process them now. So how do we get that? The response is already available for us in the response variable. So we are going to create an object for a response. So I can say response object and then call JSON script and then put a response body into this. So as we do this, now response object has a JSON object notation for all this. And I can say one more variable that is OpenAI answers. So all the answers that are provided by OpenAI can actually be put into this. Now I can do response object dot choices instead of the 0, 1, and then the text inside it. So everything gets stored right now on OpenAI answers. The next thing I need to do is return them. And what am I going to return? All the OpenAI answers. So script include is a reusable server-side code. And using the server-side code, I'm calling the REST message that we created there. And whenever any user or any application that is trying to call this particular script include, they'll be returned with this answers that is coming in the response object. So I can go ahead and save this. We have our script include ready now. Now, the next thing that we are going to do is go ahead and create an action. How are we going to do that? So go for flow designers. We're going to play around with our flow designers and create a simple action. So this is the action that is going to be called whenever the virtual agent comes into picture. And using this action, we'll be making a call to our script include. So you can go ahead, create an action from the flow designer and say that OpenAI integrations. Submit this now. We need an input. The input is going to be the prompt message that we need to give. So give a prompt, keep this mandatory. Now we have this input available. Next thing is we need to create a action here, and this is going to be script. So we have a custom script action using which we can actually call some scripts, and here it's going to be again prompt. The value for prompt is going to be the one that we just created earlier. So click on this. We have a data picker. We have our inputs. Inside inputs, we have created prompt. And this is a place where we will be calling our script include now. So it is pretty simple to call. All we need is to store our outputs. We have inputs and outputs already defined. So go for outputs dot answer. We are going to create a function call to our OpenAI utils. So you need the name of the script include. So copy the name, go back to the flow designer, give it the name, give the function call. The next thing is I need to call the function. So inside the script include, we have this function which we need to call, and we are going to pass the inputs into this. Inputs.prompt, because this is the one that we are taking as an input, and we are passing this as a parameter which it will take inside this function. So the function will have the prompt message with whatever inputs that have been given to this particular function call. And then this goes to the outputs.answer, and we need to define an answer variable in outputs here. So we got this answer. This is going to be mandatory again. So we have defined our script actions. All that's left is to go ahead and create an output. So create an output variable. This is again going to be answer. Again, this answer. The same, we need this to be mandatory. So we need one more. We have answer now, outputs given, and this answer. Let us go ahead and edit this. It should have action status available. Let us see. Status. This needs to be type object. So I can save this. Yeah, actually this gets created automatically, so we can remove this. We have our inputs ready, we have our script calls made, and then we have our output available for us here. So the answer here, this needs to be the answer from our output. So I can directly get it. So from the script step, we can give this answer back to this. So I don't have to give anything dedicatedly here, but it asks for some value. So we can go ahead and check out all the other ones. So edit outputs. We have this here. We can move back. So all that's needed for us is to go ahead and test this. We can ideally remove all the values, check how things are there. And let's say if I go for this and save this. This is saved. We can actually test this. The first thing that we need to do is publish this. We can go ahead and publish this particular record. Yeah, I forgot to give this particular one. Let us publish this. Okay, now this is fine. We have published this. All that's left is to go ahead and create a virtual agent topic now. How do we do that? Back to virtual designer. Virtual agent designer. In this virtual agent designer, we are going to create a new topic that is going to talk with our OpenAI systems. OpenAI. And give everything as default and just click on new. So by default, it will get us start and end. Now we need to take user inputs. So we are going to use text. I'm gonna give the node name as user inputs. And this is going to have the script that is available for me. So what I need to do is probably we need to have a prompt. This prompt, I'm gonna write some script to it. So I'll come back to this and save this to default. We already have one created. So I'll show you how it is. So we have this, I'm going to take this script and I'm going to use this in our input here. Changes, this is OpenAI talking. Can I help you? Now, once we have this data, it's all the user input that we are taking. Now we need to have a decision made because this is where we decide if the input is valid or not. So we can take the decision tree and paste it here. we can always add and then say invalid input, or we can say end conversation. The condition, you can add some conditions. This is going to have conditions that are nothing but user input contains by. Let us simply save this and can add condition. This is a valid question. When can it be valid? Probably when the user input does not contain by. So if I'm saying by, which means I'm going to close this. Now I need this to perform some action. I can keep this action here. Let me first close this. I need to put this back to, if it's a valid question, this needs to again ask me the next question. Do this and click, drag, drop it back to user inputs. So when it is a valid question, I can ask back the questions back to it again. Make sure that you're putting it after user input. And now I need to ask OpenAI something. I need to select a scope. So if you recollect, this is the one that we just created. So we are going to ask from a global scope. And then the action is OpenAI integrations. And this needs input because prompt, we have marked that as mandatory. I can use a data pill, select input variables, and this is going to be user inputs. We can leave the rest of these to default. This is all set. We can save this. Hopefully there's no error. And we can try testing it. So the testing actually initiates a virtual agent topic, whatever that we have created. And this will ask, let us give the input as what is Servicenow? And this is the testing integrations. So preview only options will come and something is happening in the backend. We got the response and things are working fine. It got some response, we can go ahead and click on buy. So, which means we can see some dotted line has come up and this has closed our integration. So I'm going to save this again. Let's go ahead and publish this. So once published, this should be available for us in our portal to communicate. We'll go to our portal and we'll check our virtual agent for a new topic. We'll ask it to show everything and we have OpenAI integration available. And this is saying this is OpenAI talking and how can I help you? Let's say who's going to win today's IPL match? So it gives us information again, everything is happening in the backend. Make sure that, it says it is impossible to predict, but all this is happening in the backend. It talks to the OpenAI system and gets all this data. You can ask, is there a real match today? The limitations are very less because this is a trial account and you have a limit to how much API calls you can make. Once that is exhausted, you may no longer need. So quick wrap up, what all we did, we created a business rule, we created a server-side code, which is our script includes, and we can do the same with the help of a business rule also. We created a flow designer action, so we can create a action to call any script includes. And then we created a virtual agent topic. Using the topic, we call the action. The action in turn calls the script include. The script include in turn calls the REST messages. So this is done and it's still loading, but I'm hoping I'm exhausted my limit. So I'm just gonna cancel this and then we can close our conversation. It keeps on loading, but that happens sometime. We can close this. So this is around using the virtual agent API integrations and all those. So you can write some business rules, you can write some client scripts. All this will help us in creating this integration, but ideally it is based on use cases. Case by case, as per the request, you can go ahead and